My name is Rob, and I'm a millennial.
And I'm Dave, and I'm Gen Z.
Weirdly, we've got the same dad.
But we didn't meet until I was nearly 30.
So we figured out this podcast as a way to get to know each other a little better.
Which we've certainly done through the medium of many an album. So this is the podcast about the music that...
Your
brother...
should...
No!
Today we are talking about LCD Soundsystem and their monumental masterpiece, Sound of Silver. If we need a quick potted history, LCD Soundsystem arose early in the millennium. They're the brainchild of certain James Murphy, the kind of evil genius behind basically all of their music. He writes and plays nearly all the parts on it. It's kind of a one-man band thing, but they do have a touring outfit. This was their second record, came on the back of the monumental hype that greeted their eponymous debut. It's fantastic, obviously. They did one more record and then called it a day in a big glamorous fanfare, and then promptly 5 years later announced a reunion. Well, they're back on stage in less than 5 years after bowing out into a plum, which we'll come to. Dave, had you heard of LCD Soundsystem?
Nope, not a jot, not a sliver, not a thing. If I had, I kind of thought, ooh, they're probably a kind of production-y thing. Like, you know, in my head, maybe Daft Punk or Aphex Twin or that kind of, you know. Yeah.
Which they kind of were in the sense of when it was all DFA records, Death from Above records, which, yeah. Okay, well, you've had a couple of weeks with this record now.
Yes.
I really want to know what you think of it, but first, I just want to, I want to ask a particular question. What's your favourite one-liner?
My favourite one-liner has to be, New York is the greatest if you can get someone to pay the rent.
That is definitely in the top 5 for me. I feel like, this is a record of irreverent wit and slightly, too cool for school, too cool for your own party.
Mm-hmm.
You're throwing the party and then you're DJing Eclectic Records in the corner, but sneering at the audience for not getting it, even though they're having the best time of their lives.
Yeah, and even if they do get it, you hate them for it.
Exactly. That's how I imagine James Murphy gets his kicks. Yeah. And I think my favourite line, and it's more about the delivery than the line itself. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who still think we're from England, which I love, because as you know, so much hipster music in the early noughties kind of had to be validated by the British press. And I just always like, we're not.
Yeah.
We're not, no.
Yeah.
It's just, It's like...
It has to be said that track is the mine of brilliant one-liners. You might have lots of mimes, always makes me smile, because that's what the Americans think of the French. The line that goes around
At least
my
we
head,
got magazines. Just saying.
But I also quite like the off What's the Takes, we get high on lemon sips. And he loves the line and repeats it, but that goes around my head a lot.
About 18 times. Yeah. It's an album with not a lot of lyrics. There's a couple of exceptions. A couple of songs have, more than one or two verses to them and actually have a story to tell. But most of them, it's this kind of flippant little kind of like vignettes that couldn't be interpreted in different ways, and we've talked about this before. I mean, we love lyrics that do that you can just, internalize and immortalize and come to mean something to you that may be something completely different. I mean, I feel like there's like a complete hedonism to this album, but also such a world weariness. It's an album of complete contradictions. Like, for all his kind of irreverent detachment, obviously there is a real earnestness there, right? And all this kind of sloppy punkishness, but clearly so much effort has gone into the production. Yeah, it's kind of danceable and emotive while being nostalgic but futuristic. I mean, it's Bowie versus Byrne, it's us versus them. I think it's a masterpiece. Now you got to tell me what you thought of it, Dave.
I thought it was very, 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 very good.
Yay! A hit.
Yeah, a hit.
I don't think I've had a hit this season yet, so yes.
But you'll I've been really
there's always a
because the brackets not brilliant, close brackets, but it's very, very, very good. And
okay, I'll take that.
And the reason it's very, very, very good is because there are some. That's on average, it's very, very, very good, and there are moments of.
The reason it's very, very good is because it's
on average very, very good. Yeah, exactly. Because there are.
However,
there are moments of absolute out and out brilliance, which are probably pretty obvious, which we'll come on to. And then there is a sustained level of very, very goodness. There is, unfortunately, for me, a couple of tracks, actually, that it would have been better without. I thought in my humble, I know about these thingsness, but it lowers the average.
Okay, I think I probably agree with you, but I'm of the opinion actually that every album should have more songs. Because if you're a fan, you want to hear them all, especially in the CD era when this came out. But you're right, this is what, an hour long or so?
55 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of those records that I've got on double LP, but know that they probably could have shaved 12 minutes off and made a banging 1 LP album like the first album.
Brilliant album. Yeah. Yes.
But I also love the sprawling grooves of it. Would those two songs, perchance, be Us v Them and Watch the Tapes?
No. No. Those two songs are Sound of Silver.
No.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And when I'm feeling particularly grumpy because of Sound of Silver, Time to Get Away. And
interesting, because I kind of feel like Us and Them and Time to Get Away are just a little bit too similar, and I feel like they could have done with just one. Maybe it gets early in the record, or maybe it's just a bit more upbeat, but I prefer Time to Get Away. I'm going to grab my LP copy right now so I can read the track list in front of me.
Okay, fair enough.
On paper.
Yeah. With your big
cardboard, with my
your
fingers.
Big, massive,
tactile,
clumsy vinyl shit that's going to scratch. I just listened to it on Spotify. It was a whole lot easier. And there was the track listing just on my screen. It was really easy. Just get with the program, Rob, you young whippersnapper with your vinyl and your trendy.
So if those are the two tracks you like the least, what are the 2 or 3 that are dead set bangers for the Hipster Dad barbecue playlist?
Well, Get an Oculus, North American Scum are brilliant for that. The artistic highs, if you like, are obviously, I think it is pretty obvious, Someone Great and then All My Friends. Yeah.
What a 1-2 sucker punch.
Yeah. And that's almost why I think Sound of Silver is such a low point. I might as well do my grand theory. Shall I do my grand theory? I always have a grand... It's not a grand theory.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a kind of a question, really. Do you know much about his writing process? Because I think the thing for me is clearly Get an Oculus, Time to Get Away, Us v Them, Watch the Tapes. They sound like a jam, right? They sound like someone set up a groove and jammed some stuff. And then with those really good jams, it feels like they've then crafted something really good. And Get an Oculus, I love the way it kind of starts. You just think, is this just going to be a jam? And then it comes in, those harmonies on When Once You Had Believed. And you go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that in this type of music at all.
And Bowie back from the dead.
Yeah, I know. And that's brilliant. He's really, as you say, he's tried hard there and it works and it's brilliant. So, and as just a record of really good jams, without those artistic highs of Someone Great and All My Friends, I was into it anyway. I loved all that. I get Time to Get Away, I thought was, say, a little bit lower, but yeah, North American Scum's great. Us v Them, Watch the Tapes, all good. And then, though, you've got those artistic highs as well.
The real sucker punch.
Yeah, which just takes the album to a whole different level for me. And then Sound of Silver was just kind of, you go, brilliant opening. Who doesn't love that is probably one of the best one-liners on it. Sound of Silver, talk to me, makes you want to feel like a teenager till you remember the feelings of a real life emotional teenager. And then you think again, and I'm living with teenagers in my house at the moment. So the track went on and I laughed out loud and I thought this is going to be, if he'd done with that, what he'd done with Get an Oculus and the other jammy ones, brilliant. But maybe I've listened to it track by track too much and you're in the arc of it. But as a track, it does fuck all. It does that.
I mean, no, I think what it is, Dave, is it's the most kind of housey. It's basically a dance track, right?
Oh,
and
but it's
there
not
was this
even
whole other
that.
kind of strange to his... No, but there's some really subtle, interesting percussive layers building, and it's quite trancey. It's a great dance floor track. I really enjoy it. It does go on, but that's what those 12 inches are for, to get a groove going. I think the album would be weaker without it, and it would also lack a title. So yeah,
could have picked another one. Get an Oculus. That's a good title. North American Scum. They're all good titles. He's good with the title.
He's good at saying something very glib, which could be profound, but could be complete throwaway. And it's probably a bit of both.
In 10 words or less. Yeah. He's very good at that. Yeah. So
okay, shall we talk about the emotional side and then come on to the kind of the innocuous side?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah. So there was me enjoying it anyway, and then Someone Great came on. And Blimey, that's a piece of art, and lyrically, actually does. I mean, if you've experienced losing someone close, he nails it. I think. The worst is all the lovely weather, and it keeps coming, and all the work that needs to be done. All that kind of feeling of. It reminded me, that. I'm going to sound, but I do only know this poem because of Four Weddings and a Funeral, the big 80s rom-com. The famous Auden poem, Stop the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. That idea of life does just go on when, don't you get it? That life's going on and I'm having to do all these normal things, but someone great is gone, and that's the real tragedy there. So don't talk to me about dog's need or the work that needs to be done. I just thought he really nailed that, and the lyrics and the music came together very beautifully. Just a brilliant moment, and I imagine people do play that song at their funerals. They bloody well should do. I don't know how did it hit you, but I thought it absolutely took the album from I'm enjoying these funky jams to, whoa, hang on, you got something different there. Well done.
That's so interesting. So you've instantly understood it as a song of grief for someone that's passed away. Because I, for a long time, just kind of assumed it was just a breakup song, a very powerful one. But someone great is gone from your life. But then I've fallen onto a new theory, which I'm not necessarily saying I endorse, but there is some evidence there. It kind of alludes to possibly being about a miscarriage.
Okay.
Because I wish we could talk about it, but that's the problem. They can't talk about it. But with someone new, you couldn't start too late for beginnings. It'd be too late to find someone new and start trying it all over again. But, the little things that made me nervous are gone in a moment. And and then the whole waking up, the phone is ringing, surprise, that should be a perfect warning, that's something the problem. That sounds like they're getting a call saying the bad news. I don't know. I mean, it's not overt, but there's definitely, a possibility that could be what it refers to. But I mean, in any case, that's why it's a great lyric, because you can read what you want into it. And
yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll tell you the bit that I thought it was about someone passing away was, to tell the truth, I saw it coming the way you were breathing, but nothing can prepare you for it. That if you've been next to someone that is passing away, breathing becomes very important. The way they breathe. So that's why I thought it was that. But you could be right too. Or he knowingly is, leaving all options open. It's definitely about grief and loss, right? And he's left it so that it speaks to, a wide spectrum of people's cause of that grief. Well, yeah.
And that's why it's interesting, and I'm glad you kind of picked on this one first, because this is certainly their first album, and their reputation up until this point had been very much as a kind of this irreverent, fun dance/punk band. But this really is, like, as you say, quite a profound emotional statement nestled in what is a quite steely, cold, detached album otherwise. So, it's interesting. Which is why I was a little bit sad, actually, to find that. So this was part of the instrumental track for Someone Great. It was part of 4553, which was a running mix he did for a brand of sports shoe, which made me really, really a little bit sad, actually.
That is a bit sad.
And it has actually been latched onto by lots of, been used in several different commercials, because it has this quite emotive power, including one for a mobile phone brand where they kind of used it to show images of memories and
Okay.
So I mean that just shows the power of the music, but also how it's kind of been co-opted.
Well, yeah, and also he's agreed to those sales as well. He hasn't done.
I think he's quite shrewd, Yeah.
He hasn't done the Jim Morrison, when he finds out the bit in the Jim Morrison film where he finds out that they've used "Come On Baby Light My Fire" as an advert, and he throws his toys out the pram, and because his artistry has been maligned. He's not done that at all. He's gone, no, have it. Don't care what it meant. Give me the bucks.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I do think in this day and age, record sales.
You got to get the money where you can.
Aren't an income anymore.
Yeah.
So getting sponsorship to realize a 45-minute production you want to do and get it released, and
fair enough. And it's all about publishing.
In this day and age, most millennial and Gen Z artists, they don't really see branding as a bad thing, because it's the only way to get you'd celebrate. It's not selling out. It's how you get things done.
Yeah.
He, however, is not a millennial or Gen Z artist. He is distinctly a Gen X, like yourself, which is the other remarkable thing. This record came out when he was 37, I believe. Which,
well past it. Well past the 30 Rubicon for making great work. Yeah.
Well, so maybe this is where you sprinkle in a little bit of the bio. So, this was very much a considered work of a bit of a scene veteran, right? He was born in New Jersey, moved to New York, in his late teens, 18, 19, to make it. And he was in a series of, like, not particularly successful bands in his 20s, right? Falling Man, Pony, Speed King. Hadn't heard any of them. None of them found that interesting.
And what was he? So sorry to cut you off, but what was he in those bands? Was he the singer? Was he the drum? Because I did look on the track listing, just mainly because I was interested about how much of this was real drums and how much of it wasn't. Not that it kind of does matter in terms of some of the jamming of it. And I noticed he played drums on some of the tracks. And vocally, he's really interesting because he's got this innocuous voice that's actually really great. But it's it's not, grandstandingly Michael Stipe great, different kind of thing. It's just a kind of it's an everyman voice, but it kind of suits everything he's doing.
He's very much an anti-front man, but also kind of leans into this. He said something to a magazine once about how, like, he's always described as being kind of like bear-like, and people pick on his weight and say he's a little, he's unshaven, and it's clearly like he could choose to shave.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's tried to work out, but he's kind of leaning into that. And I think that's actually one of the reasons that the white indie music press fawns over him so much, because he kind of looks like the average music writer.
Yeah, no, he looks like me. He's probably about my age.
People see themselves in him, so that's
slightly gone to seed white liberal musician. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. In any case, I don't know what he played in those bands. I think the point was he was teaching himself everything. But alongside this, he was learning to DJ, right? And he actually found more success DJing at parties and playing very eclectic set lists and putting on these parties in New York. And that's when he formed this production company, DFA, with Tim Goldsworthy, the Irish producer.
Right.
So this is where the musical innovation kind of gets interesting, because you're asking how he made these tracks. And I don't exactly know, but clearly he's holed up in a studio working a little bit like a house producer, right? He's laying layers. I think you're right. You're calling them jams, but he's jamming with himself. But as you'd make a dance track, you'd start with a really strong beat, and then you'd add a bass line, and then you'd add some keys or whatever, and a vocal, and you slowly. Generally, a lot of house music works the way a lot of LCD Soundsystem music does, particularly Get Innocuous and obviously All My Friends on this, where it's like one layer and then layers are added to it builds an intensity.
Yeah.
But the groove is constant.
Sure.
So I think he was very schooled in that. And in this day and age, obviously, genre blur is the new norm. There is no genre in the Spotify age, etc., etc., etc. When he dropped the first single, Losing My Edge, in 2002, which is a masterstroke, I don't know if you've heard it yourself.
No,
it's a song where he basically arrogantly lists all these moments of music history where he was supposedly present. But then it says he's losing his edge because the kids are coming up, and they're there's a band that sold their guitars and bought turntables, and then they sold their turntables and bought guitars, but he was there for Can's first concert. It's hilarious, and it's this kind of irreverent, kind of long monologue over a groove, which he basically constructed himself. There was no LCD Soundsystem. He put it out. It became a surprise hit. Then he had to build a band around this.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm saying his mythology. So that's the interesting part.
Bit like Bon Jovi.
A bit like Bon Jovi. So the mythology. How do you say that word?
Mythology.
The mythology and the mythology.
Mythology is the science of taking crystal meth properly. Mythology is what you're
mythology
talking about.
And methodology. The mythology and the methodology.
The mythology of the methodology.
The mythology and the methodology is very much that he was, strafing these worlds in a way that was not that as done. And you will say, because of course you can hear 70s Bowie and Eno and Talking Heads in a lot of this music. I don't think, and a lot of probably Duran Duran were doing kind of disco rock, but it was definitely out of fashion. And he was bringing a renewed kind of modern house sensibility to it, and then disco was worming its way in. So I do think there's, this kind of dance punk thing certainly did sound very, very fresh. And I think the point was because he was throwing these DJ parties, but then also forming an indie band.
Yeah.
There was a point where those two cultures were very mixed. And I think the same thing probably happened in the UK in the early 90s with Primal Scream, when the Hacienda crowd met the indie crowd, and these things famously happen. But I think LCD Soundsystem were key in that movement. But actually, what they did before that was he produced the Rapture's first album, which has the song House of Jealous Lovers, and that was a huge hit. And that's kind of where he him and Tim Goldsworthy first perfected this kind of disco punk crossover sound, which it's almost like they had such success with that, he kind of replicated it in his own music.
I got you.
But it definitely was very fresh to do this. It's essentially indie house music, really, in many places, right? Which is kind of cool. It's house music with guitars and witty lyrics. And an old unshaven dancing man who looks like your dad at the front of the stage. So,
yeah. It's definitely what I would think of as kind of dance music with an indie. It's not even an indie edge, with an indie complete. You know, it's a sort of 60% dance music, 40% indie. It's that way round. But what an incredible thing for him to do it in his mid-30s, because he's way past it. He should have dropped this, and it should have been clunkingly uncool and awful, because he's way too old to understand either dance music or indie, because those two genres, by their very distinction, are for people under 25. And innovations in them should be done by people under 25. So amazing.
But that's my point. He spent his 20s playing in rock and indie bands, but also learning to DJ and learning to self-produce. This was kind of the beginning of the self-production era, right? Late 90s, early noughties, where obviously he had his own studio, but being able to do all this at home and basically form his own studio, DFA, and then it was a 24/7 kind of party hub where him and Goldsworthy and the rest of the crew would come and make tracks any time of day. It sounds very studenty, but basically learning to do it to the point when he did emerge, he was kind of fully formed. And I think some story about how he spent like 9 months perfecting what was going to be the first single, Beat Connection, but then supposedly he did Losing My Edge in like 2 days or something instead. He finally just had a breakthrough, but he clearly spent a long time laboring over this music. And I think it was his result of him doing the Rapture and going like, okay, I could do it for them, but being quite a domineering producer who everyone said kind of wanted everything to be his way and was quite difficult to work with. So it's kind of like, why do you go and do it yourself? So it's kind of like, okay, I will go and do it myself. And
take your screaming artistic vision and realize it yourself rather than through
us. And then that's it. I think him and the Rapture famously fell out. And I think I read a news story from about 2 years ago where the Rapture lead singer was finally going like, look, I finally said to James, like, look, you won. Your band was more famous than mine. Can we be friends? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. Because he's, very competitive, very anal, meant to be very OCD about things, which is why I find all these irreverent lyrics and those little ways he leaves in, like talking and drumsticks clattering and stuff in the production. It's all deliberate, it's all. I think it's all high.
Yeah, no, and that really, really came across to me in all of it. As I say, apart from Sound of Silver, where I just and I have given it a good go, honestly, and all the others where I thought, because I think I said Time to Get Away. That was one of the. Actually, I've learned to like it in the. That thing we've talked about with an album where you kind of suspend your disbelief for that album, and you just go with it, and like that's what they're doing, and that's fine. I'm just gonna Bon Jovi, just go with it, and enjoy the Rolling Stones one especially. Just it's old men drunk in a pub, fine, just do it. And I really, really did, and actually, so Time to Get Away, I did in the end. But Sound of Silver, just every time I couldn't keep on the roller coaster because it just didn't seem to have that same level of attention to keeping you interested, and because you could feel in the other tracks he was kind of every so often going, yeah, that's different, that's clever, that's he really crafted stuff. And just Sound of Silver, I don't know, I can try it again, Rob, but it just didn't have that. It was just it was my image as a 53-year-old basically rock person's of that kind of music. Oh, it just does the same thing over and over again and doesn't really try very hard. It just puts a beat on and it just does that lyric again. I just felt all those cliches coming out of me because that's what it was, and I couldn't escape it.
Well, as is the want of music like this, where it came out on a semi-dance label and is very much dance adjacent or electronic music very adjacent.
Dance
obviously,
adjacent.
All these songs,
excellent phrase. Yeah.
Obviously, all of these songs would have been remixed by various people. I think Franz Ferdinand did one, and there was instantly a remix EP, and there will have been dozens of remixes over the years, which have probably made the songs to you less listenable because they make them more dancey.
Yeah.
But I would say that Sound of Silver is the only song on the album that I think could have been played in a house DJ set without being remixed. So I think it holds its place for that reason.
Okay.
And as I certainly enjoyed it. And in fact, I encountered most of this music for the first time on dance floors.
Yeah.
Is there any other song you'd like to talk about? Because I think there's 2 more real emotional sucker punches.
Well, so I mean, all my friends, bloody hell, and I don't. So I purposely not researched them, but I'm assuming. You tell me. I'm assuming All My Friends is like that if they play it live, if they do play live, the whoop goes up, because it's head and shoulders in an album that's very good. It's head and shoulders just spine-tinglingly. I mean, and you just think when they were doing it, they must have fucking known, right? That this was
when he was doing it.
Yeah.
Because actually, have you looked at the credits? It's like James Murphy, this, a little bit of percussion here, some vocals by Naxi Wang on 3 tracks. You know,
right? Yeah,
basically like 90% his music.
Yeah. And it's a masterpiece of kind of, you know, minimalist. You know, I got essence of Philip Glass and Steve Reich minimalist music because of that repeated piano thing. But he really does craft the build really, really well. The lyrics, again, you can read all sorts of things into it, but it basically
let's do the music first. Let's do the music first. So,
and then the final slightly wanky thing I'm going to say is it really did remind me, for a couple of reasons, of Lou Reed's Street Hassle. Now, I think we've talked about. Do you know Lou Reed's Street Hassle, the song and album?
No, I know it's got a really bad cover.
It's got a terrible cover. A little bit like this.
Probably why I haven't gone further with it.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So not having that one.
Many Lou Reed fans will have different opinions, but Street Hassle, the rest of the album, is quite Lou Reed, if you like, a little bit Lou Reed by numbers, although people would say, what is that? But it, you know, kind of rocky and disgruntled and quite minimalist and basic. And then there's this moment, Street Hassle in the middle, a bit like All My Friends, where you go, wow. And again, it's actually a repeated cello phrase that goes on, and he builds all kinds of things to it. And oddly, Bruce Springsteen is on that track because he found him in his studio and got him to read something else. But anyway, wonderful, yeah. But for those two reasons, because it's, again, this minimalist emotional journey, and it arguably does take what is, you know, for both artists, they're kind of, you know, LCD by numbers, which it isn't because it's great, and Lou Reed by numbers, people argue about whether it's great, but the whole album is lifted by this one song because it's just a seminal piece of art and work, and that song is something I will, you know, whatever else, and the rest of it I really enjoy, and I've been running to it and stuff. But yeah, All My Friends, LCD Soundsystem.
It's a great running album, isn't it? It's a great running album.
But that is a song I'm really glad I've heard, and is probably in my top 50 songs of all time now. Do you know what I mean? It's incredible. Isn't it? Yeah.
So, I mean, the way it's put together, you say, with that nagging, incessant piano, at first you think, what is this boring music? And then it just locks in. And now when you hear the piano, I already get the goosebumps because I know what's coming. That kind of crest. It's like a cresting wave that just never quite breaks. It's like you always think you're on the edge of this beautiful, beautiful moment. And then actually the end is almost kind of peters out, which I also kind of like. It doesn't, because it can never actually meet the promise of this cresting wave. It's just this incessant nagging, yearning. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about it. It's an ecstatic dance song, yet a deeply, deeply, deeply kind of personal, introspective cry for help at the same time.
Definitely.
We normally do the personal bit at the end of the podcast, but I have to tell you this because I think it would have been this song that got me hooked. There was a weekly alternative club night in Dubai, a place not known for weekly alternative club nights, when I was there, and invariably whenever I'd done whatever, reviewed whatever, you know, less engaging or more high class or clubby music or whatever, I'd find myself at this club night on what would have been a Friday night, and where they, you know, so many nights would end with this song because it's just the perfect closer. And it just brings it all together. And that's actually the interesting thing, because I always heard is, we're your friends tonight, where are your friends? So to me it was like people I didn't know, like, you know, random strangers or people you half know, you know, might have nodded out of the night but don't really, you know, whatever, would end up on the dance floor together exchanging just joyous looks. And, you know, it was just a really, really, really gathering thing. And it's only kind of later that I've understood the really kind of soul-searching element of it, which, do you want to talk, what did the lyrics leave you with?
I mean, it felt like a journey through life almost, and maybe, you know, is it someone on their deathbed? Again, going back to the previous song, but, you know, it starts with how it starts. You check the charts. I mean, that just sounds like people, you know, trying to conceive a baby, right? And then, you know, it goes through life, but but they're going to stay up late, and there's always people there. Exactly.
It sounds like they're checking, I don't know, the weight of the drugs, or I don't know. I don't know that was a reference to, but
at the end of it, where it's, you know, where are your friends tonight, and then if I could see all my friends tonight, it does just speak to that thing around, you know, what's the phrase? You know, nobody on their deathbed. wishes they'd been into one more work meeting or earned another, $10 or whatever. Everybody on their deathbed just wishes they'd spent more time with the people they loved. And and that's exactly, if I could see all my friends tonight all the time, that'd be great.
Well, it's interesting that I probably got into this song in, my late 20s, mid to late 20s. I missed it when it came out, but that's why I love that lyric that really hits me hard. I think the first thing that constitutes a chorus, you spend the first 5 years trying to get with a plan, and the next 5 years trying to be with your friends again. Because to me, it really speaks to a kind of like an early midlife crisis, an early kind of reckoning of the 30s of like, you might graduate, you might move to a city, and you've had all that fun, and then you spend 5 years knuckling down your career and trying to be a normal person, and then once you've got that stability, all you really want to do is go back to the pub with your mates, but you can never quite recapture that. Yeah. And trust me, I've tried.
I think we've all tried that. Yeah. And it's never quite the same.
So that is probably the most profound personal line for me.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there's a really, really like flippant line, like again, contender for line of the album. We set controls for the heart of the sun.
Oh yeah,
one of the ways that we show our age. Like
brilliant.
Like
brilliant.
Just using the deeply uncool Pink Floyd reference, and also kind of admitting they're old. That's the whole point. Like to me, this is someone that says it's a bit too old to be at the party, partying too hard. If you want to be literal about it, it probably is just about being on tour. Like just he's just partying too hard, being away, working too hard, drinking too much, they're running out of drugs, the conversation's grinding away, but he wouldn't trade one stupid decision for another 5 years of life. It's but then blowing 85 days in the middle of France, I presume that's on tour.
Yeah.
I know it gets tired, where are your friends tonight? So let's just say I think it's really interesting that when Hot Chip covered Springsteen's Dancing in the Dark, they put a verse of this song in at the end.
Okay.
Because I think there's a similar kind of like
just reflective. This was my life.
Urgency and desperation and contemplative and looking backness and
sure.
But also it's kind of a pop banger. It's rightly claimed as one of the best songs of the millennium by all sorts of people. And it's pretty effing iconic.
But it is great because and just the final point for me in the lyrics is it's both reflective but energizing, which is kind of weird. But you kind of it gives you a real sense of warm glow but it makes you go, all right, seize the day, don't waste any more time, get out there and see all your friends tonight, which is great.
With a face like a dad and a laughable stand.
I had a question. It was here though that I think I'm right in saying up until All My Friends, and I don't. It's programmed drums.
It's a perfect album up to there. I actually haven't really thought about it. I suspect a bit of both. I'm sure he's playing to a click, but there's definitely on Time to Get Away. There's definitely like some clanging cowbell and stuff.
There is. Okay,
I think it's probably. I think there's always a bit of both because he will have. Okay. Yeah, he'll be playing with a click. He'll probably start the production with an electronic drum and overdub more, and sometimes take the electronic drum out. Sometimes use both. I think it's all going to be a bit of both, honestly.
Yeah, no, I really noticed the rhythm on this one, and the drum I thought was very beautifully natural as well, but driving.
So one of the greatest regrets of my career is actually had the chance to interview the drummer Pat Mahoney.
All right.
And what I didn't ask him was how did you do the drums and All My Friends? Were you doing the diddle? I wish I had, but I think I was probably too hungover after going to Bad House Party the night before.
There you go. Oh well. I suppose the other thing we haven't mentioned is North American Scum, which is a really cool track, and lyrically it's, as we said, got all the one-liners. But I actually found myself thinking, you are making it's not just that,
it's a socio-political statement.
Yes, as well. It's kind of,
especially in the post 9/11 era, where I know when I was backpacking around Southeast Asia at that time, and all the Americans would have Canadian flags sewed on their backpacks and stuff because
it's like the Americans are they're the nation.
Cultural imperialists.
It's okay to take the piss out of.
Bring McDonald's to the Champs-Élysées. Yeah.
But actually, it's kind of not okay always to pound on Americans because they're not all like that. And so I felt there was a little bit of we're taking the piss out of ourselves as a defense mechanism, and we're doing it knowingly because actually, there is a point. You can't generalize about Americans either, but we do all just assume it's okay to say Americans are thick and awful and horrible people, and it ain't. Which is an increasing sentiment I get from the song, as well as all hilarity. and the you can't have parties like they do in Spain or Berlin where they go all night, which is brilliant. It's a highlight song,
which is clearly a result of touring the first album and being exposed to all this different dance culture, which you would have been super excited about. And then and we have to talk about New York, I Love You. What do you make of the closer?
Yeah, so really glad it was there, because I thought, I'm down with the vibe of all this, structured jamming, and that's great. Us v them and Watch the Tapes, I think you thought I might find the weakest, but actually I thought they were there was enough in them. There was crafted, and I liked them. And then Sound of Silver did make me go, or is this an album of just too many jams?
You said that,
yeah. But the reason I say it again is because, New York, I Love You comes in and saves the day. It's like, oh my God, you can do that as well. And I found myself thinking that it could be a really cool album closer to almost any album ever made in any genre. It's like you could close that. You could a rock album, a dance album, a quasi. It was just like, oh, that's a brilliant song, and it's almost, it's kind of genreless, and bit funny, bit regretful. It's a really great song to finish it, and it's almost like a proper song after all that jamming, which is great as well.
I loved, again, like the rest of the album, it's so emotionally confused. It's like, you're safe, but you're wasting my time. But you're perfect, don't change a thing.
Yeah.
The boring collect in the neighborhood bars where he once wants to drink, he means all disrespect by that, but he's still the one pool where he'd happily drown. And I think it's a real...
Yeah.
Because it's almost like that is, as a Brit looking in, at least, that is New York. It's a city of contradictions. Everyone's glamorizing the 70s, and to a certain extent he is. And now everyone's actually glamorizing the early noughties, where him and the Strokes and the Rapture and Interpol so that were happening. So in any case, that's New York's kind of narrative. Every generation kind of glamorizes the narrative before. So even reading about Patti Smith recently, she was glamorizing kind of the beatniks or whatever, and what's happening in the 60s, and then people came in the 80s glamorizing the loft jazz in the 70s and the Lou Reeds and the Ramones and the rest of it. And I think maybe New York is just destined to live out this exponential gentrification, which ironically, James Murphy could claim to be a part of, because in 2015, after folding the band, he opened a wine bar in Brooklyn.
Of course he did. Yeah.
In any case, there's no argument that if, after putting out 3 fantastic albums that did do a lot to kind of redefine the face of indie music and win you riches and plaudits alike, if you're then going to wrap it up after barely 5 years, you're going to do a big 4-hour closing concert in Madison Square Garden.
Okay, this is
you're going to close the night and therefore your career with I Love You, but you're bringing me down. Yeah. Imagine what a moment that was.
Yeah. Incredible. So Rob, what you've said is that this was a short career of LCD. There's 3 albums. Then is that? Where does this sit in the arc of LCD Soundsystem, and kind of where should I go next? Or if there's only 3 albums, I'll just listen to all 3. But what?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the first single was 2002. Then there was a bunch of kind of dance-focused singles, which all kind of got wrapped up on the bonus disc and the bonus tracks of their debut album, Self-Titled 2005. Which is great, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's a lot more irreverent, a lot more thrown together. There's not really so much of a narrative arc. It's just lots of fun, poppy, kind of more trashy dance punk songs. The kind of standout, the hit, was a song called Daft Punk Playing at My House. And it's a very, very silly ditty that just repeats that over and over again.
Yeah, that's
great. And it's great. And that's why Sound of Silver, there was such a step up, because I think musically it's a lot more developed, a lot more cohesive, but it also has these kind of 3 big emotional statements that we've discussed.
Yeah.
Then they did one more great album, This Is Happening, which is also super strong. Developed some of the ideas, but I don't think it hits quite as hard as Sound of Silver and doesn't have quite as many highs and lows, but it's still fantastic. So I would probably say go 1, 3. Then, as I mentioned, when they announced that album was coming out in 2010, they already said Robert Murphy declared, that's the end. I've had it, 3 albums in 5 years.
Job done.
We're done. It doesn't want to be an old rock star, whatever. Big fanfare. So it was kind of a little bit disappointing when, 4 years later, they kind of announced they were coming back and playing Coachella, and after
this is really our final gig ever. Yeah,
their farewell album and DVD, was called like The Long Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like after all this fanfare, they left it like literally the minimum they could have left it. I mean, 5 years is the time most bands take between albums these days anyway.
Yeah.
Then they were back. Then they were back playing Coachella, touring, making a lot of money, and then they did cap it with a really, really good fourth album, American Dream, which dropped in 2017, which I think is as strong as This Is Happening, if not stronger. They're all great, honestly. They've not done a bad record. And they've basically continued to tour. And the reason we're doing this podcast now is because they're playing a lot of big festival dates and across Europe. As we speak.
Okay.
This summer, and they toured last summer. They played All Points East in 2017, 22 versus 40. They just keep going. So
Right.
I'm a little bit disappointed. We've only had a couple of singles that have trickled out in the last 8 years. It is feeling a little bit like a touring juggernaut. Murphy has basically said, look, I could make an album, but it would take me 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't really have the appetite for it right now because I could work on other stuff and clearly go on tour every year or two and make a few million more, which is a little bit disappointing. But I would love to see them live, and I do think that the opportunity to, as you say, experience all my friends amongst a teeming mass of, like-minded, aging yuppies would be wonderful. So, yeah.
Sure. It's funny, isn't it? Because he's clearly very knowing. We were almost going to get him through an episode without mentioning Neil Young, but obviously Neil I know, but it's the antithesis of that. For Neil, it's all about the art and the drive, and he wants to, he's going to create new stuff to the frustration of his fans sometimes until he's dead. And James Murphy's gone, nah, can't be bothered actually. I've done that. Creating art, Christ, that takes a lot of energy. I'm old now. I'll just go on tour. Thank you very much. Well,
that's
which I
it.
get. I totally get.
He's in his late 50s now, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic. He said he didn't want to be that guy. But
I have one more question. What is the sound of silver?
So, that's actually a great question. For one, how would you describe this record, Dave? Is it beige?
It's very. It is metallic.
It's metallic.
Yeah,
it's bright, it's shiny, and it's very like musical magpie. And what do magpies love? They love tinfoil, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I think it plays to the shiny, poppy, bristly coolness of the record, and coolness I mean in temperature as well as in its kind of
production and aesthetic. Yeah.
But also there's another reference. So apparently James Murphy's father used some expression where like after you've got a kid, you're always silver, as in you always put your kid first, it'll be gold.
Okay.
So I think it could also be a reference to they'd already got a lot of hype. They're already the hot new dance punk crossover hipster band in the early noughties, and their first album, was very well reviewed and made them very cool. So this was always going to be the follow up. It'd always be less hyped and probably expecting to be shat on a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so committed was Murphy to this conceit that supposedly he basically put like silver, I guess like
tinfoil.
Sheets of silver, I don't know, shiny stuff all over the walls of the New York farm where he recorded this album. Also, isn't that crazy? He recorded this on a farm
in New York. Are there farms in New York? Okay.
Well, out like New York State, right?
Oh god, in my head, this was done in a New York loft. This is like right in the middle of the city.
I know,
because it's so. It's not pastoral at all.
And his early stuff would have been done at DFA headquarters somewhere in Manhattan,
right?
Like the early singles. But it seems for the first 2 albums, he went to they built this farm. So
and what does because if you've been to a studio, it's full of that foamy stuff on the walls to do whatever it does acoustically. What the heck does a bunch of tinfoil do on the walls to it? I don't know.
No, I lied. The farm was not in. He recorded it in a farm in Massachusetts and some in his studios in New York.
Okay, because in my head he was getting up in the morning, walking down Broadway, getting a coffee, nipping into the studio, got to that like proper New York kind of thing going on. But no, he's feeding the goats first. Wow. Okay, fantastic. So I think you've already told me a little bit about how you discovered this and what it meant to you. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
I will just say that I totally missed LCD Soundsystem the first time around, probably for the same reason you were put off. The name sound hipster.
Yeah.
I was allergic to all that kind of. The klaxons were a thing as well. Yeah. All this kind of poser, hipster, whatever stuff what was happening at uni. I was avoiding it all and listening to like the Strokes and the Clash and what have you.
It
right?
didn't sound like real music.
Proper rock and roll.
That was the thing. Yeah.
And it really wasn't until I encountered a lot of this. Definitely Daft Punk was playing my house, and definitely North American Scum, and as I said, all my friends, especially, and no doubt other tunes on the dance floor at this Escape, this indie night I went to pretty much every week, and it's the same venue where I met my romantic partner for life.
Aww.
You know, at those very trashy 3 a.m. bar bill situations. So I totally discovered this music where it was meant to be heard, and I felt the real sense of community from it, and that's why I obviously went away and discovered them probably 5 years after the event. As in, probably got this album, or maybe even less.
Yeah, 5 years. Well, I'm discovering it almost 20 years after the event. So
on that note, you've heard how that music touched me in that environment? What would be the ideal listening situation for this album for you?
Yeah, I've got kind of two ways. I mean, obviously, as you know, I'm at the age of 53, trying to start going to the gym more. So, and it's definitely great for running to the gym and doing all that kind of thing. But there's something in my head.
So in that case, I highly recommend 4533, the dance.
Okay.
The running mix.
But there is a kind of, I've got this image of, because it is weird because it has a warmth to it, but it is very metallic and modern and stuff. And there's just, I haven't even got a fully formed thing, but I feel like I should listen to it wearing some kind of futuristic kind of tracksuit or something in a sort of hygienically sterile laboratory or factory that's producing silicon chips or something. And that sounds weird because there is a warmth to it, but there is, and we're all sitting around. This is what the image in my head. Rob shouldn't share this. You should, and it's all a bit kind of painted white, and everything's very clean, and we're working on something. It's like if my job was making silicon chips, I would listen to this not just because it's interesting and would get me going, but because it would feel like it was the right kind of thing to be making something clean and definite. Like, you wouldn't listen to this while milking a cow because that's organic, but you would listen to this while inventing the next microchip.
That is the most inventive answer you've given to that question of any episode so far. So I'm really glad I asked.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I shared that, because most of the time those things go in my head and I go, nah, don't say that. You'll sound like a complete nutcase, which is fine.
Well, you do, but that's why I love it. That's fine.
Well, that's okay.
Okay. Dave. So that was my last pick of the season. You've got one. What you got to play us out? What is the last album we're gonna hear on season 2?
Are going to do. I can't remember which one I decided in the end, but it's on here. Sorry, I know it's because there's 4 of them that are brilliant. That one. All right, we are gonna do. Well, actually, another man that does pretty much everything on his music. But
Prince?
No, pre that. 30 years before LCD, even, maybe even more than that. Stevie Wonder.
Oh yeah.
An album called Talking Book. There was, as Stevie Wonder fans will know, at least 4 or 5 classic 70s albums I could have chosen from. We are going to get into Talking Book on our next episode. I'm
really glad you picked that one, not Songs in the Key of Life, because it's really long.
We'll get into that. I probably would have done, maybe, but we've got a no double album rule, right? Although I found out this is a double album for you, but you know what I mean. I know old-fashioned double. Yeah,
old-fashioned double albums are all right? Like Exile would be okay. No.
Okay, we're inventing the rule. Anything over an hour seems a bit cruel.
Yeah, that seems fair. Yeah. Exile is more like 80, but it's 74. So I think it fits on a single CD. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Who doesn't need more Stevie Wonder in their life?
Exactly. So, if you have been, we are going to leap from LCD Soundsystem to Stevie Wonder, which is in itself, I think, is a fantastic thing. Thanks for listening. Bye.